Britain is going to the polls in December. So, I don't know, will British voters finally get to leave the European Union? For 3 years now, the political class, Parliament especially, has refused to do what voters actually voted for in a referendum. Leave Europe, be more independent, control their own borders. But then Boris Johnson replaced Theresa May as Prime Minister with this do-or-die promise.
We're leaving on the 31st of October, no ifs or buts.
Well, that's not actually going to happen. Johnson made a deal with the European Union, yes, a deal to leave. But Parliament, including Labor under Jeremy Corbyn, refused to endorse it. And Johnson then wanted to call an early election to let voters sort it out. But he needed 2/3 of Parliament to vote for an early election. And again, Labor helped to block him. But then Labor suddenly crumbled, and this morning, our time, agreed to an election on December 12. Joining me to discuss this is Britain's sharpest political commentator, Brendan O'Neill of Spike, the online magazine. Brendan, it's wonderful to see you again. Is this finally a victory for voters?
I think it is a bit of a victory, actually, because the question of Brexit is finally being returned to the people. You know, since 2017, which is when we had our last general election, we've watched MPs behave so badly and so anti-democratically. They've used every parliamentary trick, every legal trick to try to thwart Brexit, to block Brexit, to prevent Brexit from happening. And let's not forget, the vote for Brexit was the largest democratic vote in the history of this country. And this is the great tragedy of Brexit in some ways. You know, the people were told they had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change the whole way that Britain is governed, to break away from the European Union, to break away from technocracy. We were assured that the establishment would listen to us, and we voted in a way to say to the establishment, we're still here, these are our political views, and you cannot ignore us any longer. And what did the establishment do? It ignored us. It blocked us. It demeaned us. It insulted us for 3 years. And I think at last, with this election, the people have got an opportunity to pass judgment on those MPs who have behaved so badly over the past recent years.
Now, the polls agree, but, you know, one hesitates in this age of Donald Trump and here the Scott Morrison come from behind win to believe in any polls. But the polls agree that the Conservatives are well in front of Labor, 37% to 22%, first past the post system. What do you think? How do you think voters are going to resolve this issue? Because, you know, Johnson did say 31st of October, we're out of the European Union. He can't go there. It's going to effectively be another referendum.
The thing is that, you know, it's really unpredictable as to what will happen. The polls do show that Boris's party, the Tory party, has a lead, and that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, the way the Labour Party has behaved in recent years is just absolutely disgusting, to be frank. This is a party which ran in the 2017 general election on a manifesto which promised to respect the result of the referendum, which promised to uphold Brexit. Now, so many Labour MPs are reneging on that. Labour Party policy is now to hold a second referendum, i.e. to make null and void the first referendum. So they've broken all their promises. I mean, just to give you an example, there's a Labour MP called Jess Phillips. She represents Birmingham Yardley. And all the wards, all 4 wards in Birmingham Yardley voted for Brexit. One of them voted for Brexit by 68%, which is a really high percentage. She, Jess Phillips, this Labour MP, has spent the best part of 3 years trying to block Brexit, trying to stop Brexit. You know, the staggering contempt that these politicians have for their own voters, for the people who put them into Parliament, is really amazing. And I'm just glad that people have got an opportunity to say something about that now in the election. And I hope they seize that opportunity to say to Labour MPs in particular, you betrayed us and we're going to teach you a lesson.
But of course, Brendan, you know, every election is very complicated. There's no one single issue that decides them. This is obviously the cause for the early election. But, you know, cost of living things count, economy counts, jobs, all that kind of stuff. And, of course, you know, Labor under Jeremy Corbyn's had its own scandals, the anti-Semitism, etc. What do you think voters will actually be choosing between, and how will they fall? Which side?
I think Brexit and the EU remains the #1 issue. And in fact, a recent poll found that it's the overarching issue for most voters. You know, the NHS is important, of course, the National Health Service. The economy is important, the issue of austerity and whether we need to continue with that. All of these things factor in people's minds, of course. But a recent poll found that Brexit is still the #1 issue in people's minds. That makes perfect sense to me because Brexit influences every single facet of British politics because it comes down to the question of who governs this country. Is it governed by a political class which is increasingly cosy with a foreign technocracy, i.e. the European Union, or is it governed by ordinary people who have genuine democratic clout and the ability to make their voices heard? So in a sense, all those other issues, the health service, the economy and so on, they're all subservient to Brexit because we need to find out first who really runs this country, who's really in charge of this country. Brexit voters say we should be in charge, ordinary people should be in charge, and the people we elect should be in charge. And Remainers say, actually, let's give more influence to lawmakers in Brussels over whom none of us has any democratic control at all. So that fundamental question of who runs this country has to be resolved before we can have a serious democratic debate about all the other stuff.